At Workday Physique, we help busy executives lose weight permanently through lifestyle modification and habit recalibration. If you work in a high performance role and you're struggling to keep up with your diet and exercise, and you're tired of losing and regaining the same weight over and over again, visit workdayphysique.com/coaching for a permanent solution. That is workdayphysique.com/coaching. This will change your life. I guarantee it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Workday Physique. I'm your host, as usual, Ajitesh, and in today's episode, we're talking about why, if you want to lose weight successfully, you need to stop discussing weight loss with your friends. But before we get into that, I hope you had a great Diwali and that you had a lovely time with your friends and family. But now that celebrations are over, it's time to get back on track with your diet and exercise so that you can end 2022 on a high note and go into the new year with full momentum. Don't let this one day of celebration turn into 2 months of being off track, because when the new year comes around, you'll regret it. All right. And don't wait for the new year to start a new program, a new diet. If you want to make a change, the change doesn't have to come on the 1st of January or the 1st of a new month or the first day of the new week. You can start making the change as soon as the next hour comes around. So if it's 7 a.m. right now, you can make the change when 8 a.m. comes around. It doesn't have to be a new week, a new month, or a new year for you to make the change. Now, to come back to the topic of discussion for today's episode, a pattern that I have noticed among people who are trying to achieve weight loss related goals is that the ones who have struggled with their body weight for a long period of time, for years probably, whenever they hang out with friends and family, it is inevitably the case that whenever the topic of food comes up or whenever it's time for the meal during the gathering, that there would inevitably be some kind of comment on diet, nutrition, eating, losing weight, and all of this leads to an unfruitful discussion on the whole topic. Okay, and this is a pattern that I have seen happen over and over among people who struggle with weight loss. All right. And this could be unintentional or intentional on their part. And I'm not saying that friends and family are not to blame, because a lot of the time the provocation is external, but a lot of the times the initiation of this kind of conversation is by the person themselves. So if you're someone who initiates these conversations, not necessarily by an open-ended questions like what do you think about weight loss, like that is not how it starts. But if you pass some kind of comment which is related to diet, like I'm trying to be on a diet, I'm trying to eat less, I'm trying to lose weight, I've been trying to eat less carbs. So if you're passing off comments like that, that is the provocation for others to pitch in and start a conversation on weight loss, diet, exercise, and usually topics which none of these people have any experience in, but they're very happy to provide advice on. And the episode today is why it is not helpful, and in fact, why it can be detrimental for you to go into conversations like this and talk about these things over and over. All right, why it can actually hinder your progress. That's what we're going to discuss, and what you can do instead to stop this pattern from recurring so that you can actually achieve your goals instead of just talking about them. So that's what we're trying to get into. Now, here's a concept that I'm a huge proponent of, that if you are a blank slate, that you have no prior notions of what to do to achieve a certain outcome, it is much easier for you to learn what is the correct technique or the correct way to do things. All right. in order to simplify this, you can teach an old dog new tricks, but it just takes longer. It is more difficult and it is just an uphill task in general. So you can learn new habits to replace old ones, but that just takes more effort because you have already built those bad patterns beforehand, right? So, why is this relevant? It's because when you keep talking about your weight loss journey, your diet habits, and you keep getting feedback from your friends and family on what you should do, what you should not do, over the years, it creates these patterns regarding what you think is the right way to go about things. All right. Because some friend will tell you you should cut out carbs that worked for me, or I took this supplement program and that worked for me. All right. Or I started taking these medicines and that worked for me. So when you keep hearing these same things over and over, it creates that perception in your head that these are the things that work. But when you try those out yourself and don't see results, you still are not able to accept that those things are probably incorrect methods of going about things and that it was just coincidence that your friends saw some kind of outcome with those techniques or processes. Now, it makes it harder for you to actually accept the correct method when you come across it because it has been hardwired into your head that this is the way to go about things. And even though you're not seeing outcomes, it becomes hard for you to change those habits, change that way of thinking. So if you have spent years thinking that carbs are bad for you, and that is what has been pushed into your head, when time comes around for you to incorporate the correct way of eating, which is incorporating all food groups into your diet, including carbs, and when you go through information which teaches you that, it is harder for you to accept that you could be eating carbs and still losing weight. Whereas if you went into a program with no preconceived notions of what you need to do to lose weight, you would be more receptive to the solutions being provided. So if you're training a puppy and you have already taught them a bunch of tricks, by the time they're 5 year old, 6 years old, it is very difficult to use the same commands to teach them a new trick because that command is always going to trigger that old trick. I hope you understand. So you can teach an old dog new tricks. It is not impossible, but it is just much more difficult than if they had not learned anything for that command in that first place. Because learning something and then unlearning it, it's a more difficult process than going in with a blank slate and then incorporating new information. So you need to be very careful about what kind of information you're incorporating in order to achieve the goals you desire. Because if you're incorporating wrong information, if you're putting that into your brain, it's going to take more effort later on to erase that information and replace it with the correct information. Now, I'm not saying that your friends and family are always the worst places to seek out information because everyone has areas of expertise, domains of expertise where they have very good advice to give on. But you also have to understand that everyone around you has an opinion and everyone has advice on what you should be doing, whether or not they have actual first-hand experience dealing with those kinds of problems. All right. Because 99% of these people have never achieved what you want to achieve. Neither do they have the knowledge of what actually works. Okay, they have probably never had those goals. They probably have never dealt with similar kinds of problems as you, but still, they would have an opinion and some kind of advice on what you should be doing. And when you go looking for this kind of unsolicited advice, you're going to get the information from someone who has no idea of what they're talking about. And this doesn't only have to apply to losing weight. You know that whenever some kind of discussion comes up on any kind of topic and people are looking for opinions and advice, it doesn't just have to be weight loss. It could be anything. It could be relationships, it could be finances, business, uh, career related, studies related. So, all of these things, people just have their own opinions and they dish that out as advice that you should follow. But that is a very bad way to go about learning new ways of doing things. So it applies to any kind of worthwhile goal. It doesn't only have to apply to losing weight. It is time for a short break. If you're a repeat listener, pause and take a screenshot of this episode wherever you're listening right now and share it with your friends on social media. It will take you 30 seconds, but it could change the life of another human being looking for this very information. Thank you in advance. I really appreciate it. And now back to the episode. So, to divert to something that is related, yet not the same thing, but because of how the internet works nowadays, and it has made it so much easier for people to voice their opinions online, which is not a bad thing, but it is a double edged sword because now the people who would be dishing out their uninformed opinions and advice to just their social circle in the physical world can do this online as influencers to global internet citizens and whoever follows them. So this misinformation has been amplified. So you need to be also careful of who you follow online and if they're actually a credible source of information. Because there's a lot of noise online, but very little signal because it's a prime case of the blind leading the blind. These are people who have no idea what they're doing, but because they have mastered the way to grab attention, they grab the attention and then they dish out all this information, all this advice, which is not actually helping you, but in most cases it is acting to your detriment by filling your head with a lot of useless noise. And when you feed your brain with more and more noise, the consequence is that the quality of your output is going to suffer because what you put in is what you get out. So whenever you're talking to people about your weight loss problems and you're getting in really bad solutions, your output is going to suffer accordingly. So similarly, if you're after that going to social media and following all these influencers who have no idea what they're talking about, and you're feeding that input into your brain. So in the physical world, you're getting wrong input. In the online world, you're getting wrong input. What do you think is going to happen to the quality of your output? Another thing to keep in mind is that people who have brains worth picking are rarely out there dishing out unsolicited advice. Because in most cases, these people know that different circumstances entail different strategies, and there is no one size fits all approach to achieving any goal. So, unless and until they truly know what are the specific struggles you're going through, they would not be giving you advice on that specific subject. So, if someone is giving you very specific advice with a high degree of confidence without even knowing what you're actually going through, that's a good mental model to apply that that piece of advice should be ignored and is usually poor quality advice. Another reason why you should stop talking about your goals and what you're trying to do with your diet, with your exercise program, is because when you just keep talking about these things, it makes you feel like you've already accomplished something that you have not. All right. So when you have not put in the work, when you have not actually seen results, but you keep talking about this, like I have started this new diet, when the only thing that you have done is probably you ate a better dinner yesterday than the day before. So that is the only thing that you have done. But the next day you were talking to your friends like you have been on a healthy eating streak of over 5 months. All right. So when you're talking about it like that, it creates that false sense of validation in your head when you have not actually done the work. And you get that validation from others that, wow, you're on a diet, you're eating healthy, you're such a fitness freak now. But all you did was probably one half-assed workout and ate maybe, one less meal the previous day. So whatever be the case, but it makes you feel like you have accomplished something that you have not. And that creates a false sense of validation. And this would come back to bite you in the butt because when you don't actually achieve results, because you have not put in the work, these same friends will take that opportunity to point out how you're all talk and no action. All right, that you always keep talking about diet, you always keep talking about how you're doing this, how you're doing that, but there is nothing to show for it. All right, so it creates this negative feedback loop for yourself. So you're digging your own grave in a way. when you keep talking about these things, right? So it's your actions, not your words, that reflect your priorities. So if you're actually putting in the work, you don't have to talk about it to your friends, because when you see results, they would see that too over time, and they would ask you themselves, like, what are you doing? Like, how are you seeing these results? Like, you look fabulous, right? So they would bring that up themselves. You don't have to do it. So if you feel like you constantly have to get that validation from others that, wow, I'm on a diet, it is so difficult. I've been trying to cut out carbs. It's so difficult that I'm not trying to eat these snacks. It's so difficult for me to show up at a gym, but I'm doing it, because you're seeking that validation, but you're not actually putting in the work behind the scenes. That's going to, come back to bite you in the butt. All right. So just be wary of that. There are so many negatives to just you bringing up these topics of conversation. So here are also a few strategies I want to talk about to avoid doing this. Number one, stop talking about new things you're trying to do with your diet and your exercise. So stop seeking external validation from it, from your friends and family. So if you ate that one healthy meal, if you woke up early for the past 3 days, you went to the gym every single day for the past month, stop talking about this just to get that external validation, because your friends and family, they don't share your goals. They don't have any clue about why you're trying to do this, what all of this means to you. So when you keep seeking this validation, it does nothing good for you. And like we talked about previously, this will create a negative feedback loop. If you're not able to achieve the outcomes that you want, your friends and family would be like, oh, you always keep talking about these things, but look at you, you're still the same, right? So you don't want that negative feedback loop. If you really want to talk about these things, you need to find a tribe of people who have similar goals and aspirations. And in order to do that, you can join the Workday Physique Discord community. I'll leave a link in the episode description. So that is number one. Number two, when friends point out, okay, that, oh, you're trying to eat healthy, or you just skip those fries on your plate, like, what's going on? Are you on a diet? All right. So are you waking up early for all these days? Are you going to the gym? Are you trying to get fit? When they point out things like this, okay, instead of taking that as an opportunity to talk about your diet, talk about your exercise regime, and feel good about yourself, deflect the topic. All right. When people say that, are you on a diet? Just say that I had a heavy lunch. So, I'm just not feeling like eating more. All right. Or all this fried food that I've been eating, it's causing me, stomach problems. So I'm trying to, cut back on that. So when you deflect it away from health and fitness, away from weight loss, and deflect it to something else, it makes it less likely that they will pursue that topic further. But if you bring it every time they talk about food, nutrition, exercise, they point out your habits, and you bring it back to weight loss, bring it back to diet, bring it back to exercise, it gives them that opportunity to comment further on that. And unless and until you make a big deal out of it, it is never a big deal. So it is ultimately you who has to decide where this conversation is going to go. And my advice would be to deflect this away from your weight loss, away from diet, away from exercise as much as possible. Because there is no point talking to someone who has no interest in these things about these things, right? Because otherwise, you're just filling your brain with noise. And like we talked about, when you fill your brain with noise, your input quality goes down and your output will accordingly suffer. There is no point filling your head with noise. So just deflect these topics. And third and final, if you aren't sure of what needs to be done, if you have doubts regarding what you need to eat, how you need to exercise, seek out professional help. All right. If you visit a gym, ask your trainer. If you have a nutritionist, ask them, or drop me an email at ajitesh@workdayphysique.com and I'll be happy to help you out. So don't go with your questions to people who have no idea what you're talking about. Instead, seek out professional help and you will see much better results and it'll be a much better use of your time. That is it for this episode of Workday Physique. Thank you for listening. You can follow and subscribe to the show wherever you're listening right now so you don't miss out on future episodes. Leave a 5-star rating and review if you're a repeat listener and share this episode with one friend who you think will find it helpful. I'll see you again very soon. Until then, stay tuned, stay safe, and stay consistent.